Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Danny Smith, Executive Vice President and co-owner of Color ID. Welcome to Color ID's Campus Forum series, Continuing the Conversation. Today's session is titled Remote Card Office and is the first session of the five-part third forum series. The third forum sessions generally last 60 minutes and will run live each Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So please feel free to invite colleagues from your institution or your company or anyone you know across the identity industry that would benefit from participating in the Campus Forum series. A registration link is located on our website at colorid.com. Just look for the drop-down titled Webinars, and you'll see the registration information on the homepage there. At the beginning of today's session, relevant to the institutional attendees, there'll be a Menti poll, and that's to learn more about the common challenges that you're now experiencing. It's simple to do. You just open a browser on a PC or mobile, go to menti.com. That's MENTI.com, and type in a 6-digit code. We'll give you the code and explain more about that during the presentation. You know, it's really nice that we've been able to develop such meaningful relationships over the past 20 years, and we're incredibly grateful that we can come together today and stay connected. And once again, we have a large group of identity industry attendees joining us today. And so as we say, whoever you are and wherever you may be, we welcome you. And we hope that you find the investment of your time a great value, and we encourage you to be interactive in these sessions. Now, leading today's technical discussion will be David Stallsmith, the Director of Product Management for Color ID. Now, David brings a wealth of technical information from over 14 years of working with advanced identity solutions. And I know many of you know and have worked with David over the years as he works closely with manufacturers and vendors and certainly end users to promote the understanding of the complicated products and services that comprise our identification industry. He's contributed to the decision-making process at many universities, healthcare facilities, and government agencies as they've considered acquiring contactless, smart card, mobile ID, and biometric systems. And since 2006, David has presented annually at the NACU conference and has also presented at NACUS's annual leadership conferences, the European and Canadian Campus Card Users Conferences, and full-day identity summits hosted by some of the most prominent universities in North America. Now, joining David on today's session as moderator is Mark Deegan, Color ID's Corporate Marketing Manager. In addition to managing Color ID's marketing department for the past 16 years, Mark also juggles the duties of account representative for some of our most strategic partners, both customer and corporate. And he's also the project manager for Color ID's banking-related customers. Mark and David's technical knowledge concerning advanced identity solutions is a testament to their commitment to our industry and a great example of the value differential Color ID employees brings to our customer and our corporate partner relationships. Now, just a few housekeeping items and we'll get started. We're really encouraging these sessions to be interactive as possible, so please utilize the question box to submit questions. And all questions will be answered at the conclusion during our Q&A period. In addition to asking questions, you'll also see live polls throughout the presentation. And so please be sure to participate in those and be as prompt as possible. Also note that Color ID's higher education team is listening in on today's sessions and are available for any questions or follow-up discussions you may have. Just call or shoot your account manager an email. Also a reminder that everyone that completes the 5-session form will receive a certificate of completion and also a Color ID swag bag filled with some really nice items. Color ID can confirm everyone's attendance, so you don't have to do anything regarding that. However, each session does require a separate registration, so please make sure you register for the future sessions. Thanks again, everyone, for the privilege of your time and coming together to keep us connected. And now, before my dog starts barking or the neighbors start cutting the grass, I'm going to turn this over to David and Mark quickly as I can to get started. David?
Thanks, Danny, and welcome to this session. And your comments right there, Danny, remind me, when we set this up about 6 weeks ago, we got the idea for this webinar series, and we're really glad we're able to communicate with all the people in our community about identity during this time. And we went home, and that prompted this session, Remote Card Office. And when I sat down, I thought, wow, what are we going to talk about? So I came up with some stuff, Remote Card Office, because this is not a typical identity session. Normally we'd be talking about the other things in the other sessions, printers, ID management, cards. But today it's about what's going on when you're not at your card office. So where are we? That'll be our question. How do we establish, both time and, when this happens again is also a time question. What do we need to do? How do we do that? And we're not even going to go near why. So having set the agenda, Mark, can you take off our first poll?
Absolutely, Dave. Let's see here. I don't know if you're sharing the screen yet to see if you can.
Oh yes,
click that.
Do that. Sorry about that.
No, we're bobbing and weaving. Don't worry about it, Dave. We got this. Perfect. Okay, guys. Everybody, Dave and I have worked over 14 years together, so we know what we're doing. So don't worry, you're in good hands. So if
it was that comment about the dog.
Yeah.
Threw me
there
off.
You go. If everyone could travel to menti.com and use the code 618986. You can travel there on your phone, laptop, whatever device you can use to get to a browser. That would be great. You're going to answer this question: what would help your card office as this whole thing continues to unfold? So once folks start submitting answers to that question, we'll start seeing them come up on the board here. Just a good way to get a pulse of what everyone in this specific group is feeling right now. So again, just travel to www.menti.com, put in that code 618986, and we'll start seeing some responses here. So yeah, someone puts in a direction. I hear you. Automations, brain space, direction, integrations. Very good. Strategy, clear expectations. Yeah, there's a lot of unknown right now, isn't it? See what else we get here. And as we're waiting for a couple more answers, and we'll move on after a couple more folks plug in some results here. New printer, yeah, that always helps. Innovative ideas. Once we get a couple more results, then we'll move on. But we're going to have live polls throughout today's presentation. So as soon as you guys input your comments, we'll take it and kind of review it, everything together as one, and then we'll keep on moving. So guidance, all right. Clear expectations. So yeah, somebody else said clear expectations. When you see a larger text, then that means that somebody else did the same thing. So I think this is a good start for what we're looking for. Thank you all for participating. Dave, if you want to just take it away, close this one down, and we'll kind of just jump on into the presentation.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mark. And that will be the hardest of our polls, I promise, the open-ended, tell us how you feel kind of thing. But interesting that a lot of that had to do with how we're going to think about this, what to expect, what's our strategy. Again, questions about can we get any control of our circumstances? And if we had, even just 6 months ago talked about remote card office or something along that terminology, probably something from, I don't know, a dozen years ago would have popped into your head, like a printer and a cart and a bunch of wires, and something you're going to roll around to campus and go issue cards at a res hall, perhaps. Who thought remote card office would be nobody's on campus because they sent us home? And Color ID, the same story. We have a skeleton crew at the office because we ship stuff and we do things at the office that have to happen there, but a very few number of people there, widely separated, and usually in their own rooms. and I know that of course is going on with a lot of you. Who's in your card office right now? Because the students were sent home, and hopefully they're sitting there with a stack of books getting some work done and a laptop. But let's go to a real poll now, not an open-ended thing, but multiple choice, I promise. Go ahead, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. So first live poll, is anybody in your card office? Let's see what some folks say. Perfect. Thank you all for doing this quickly. This really helps us move along. Awesome. All right, I'm going to share this. So 56% can go in for essential projects. 33% go in occasionally. 11% not allowed to go on campus still. Wow. 0, of course, as to be expected, business as usual. So that's really interesting, everybody. I mean, the 56%, the essential projects, I mean, I would assume that that has something to do with, still being able to issue, credentials for folks that need to be on campus, or replacements, or, whatever your campus is going through right now. So very cool data. Thank you guys for doing that.
Great, and those results right there line up with the other 2 times we've gone through this presentation, and they're very similar. I think at one point we had somebody say it was business as usual. So either they live in a very remote location or they're very unaware people, but it does reinforce what we're talking about today. You're not in your office and you have to get your work done. But back at the university, all that card stuff, all that one card stuff that's represented by the black lettering here is not hardly happening at all. Some people may be going through some doors, access control. Probably not much going on in the library, print copy, bookstore, lockers, dining, for sure not. Just all these things, they're not happening. But in particular, attendance and exams, right? Those aren't. So all the one card business is pretty much stopped. In the background, though, the automated systems are continuing to do what they were set up to do. Data is moving from database to database. Scheduled batch files are still probably being processed. I mean, nobody turns off servers and network hardware, so that stuff is still running. And so, depending on how you're connected, you may have access directly to that data or indirectly. So let's go to the problem at hand, which is just about, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later too, but people are going to be coming to your campus at some point. And so up until all of this hit, normally the process for vetting them, for establishing their identity, was pretty good on campuses, really. And it's not because it used any super high security process, really. It was just such a different number of related processes using different channels that by the time somebody arrived on campus, you were pretty sure that they were who they said they were, because first of all, they applied either for employment or to be a student. Then there would probably be some snail mail going back and forth to a physical address. There would be a digital identity of some sort established through emails and possibly phone numbers. And then if almost certainly somebody would be involved either in financial aid or setting up payroll or whatever, and now you have financial information being exchanged in all the ways that is identified, bank accounts perhaps, federal enrollment, there's just a lot of processes here that if somebody was trying to behave fraudulently, it would be caught. It's somewhere in this process. There are just a bunch of them, and then other services too, third-party systems involved. So you have a pretty good idea that when people would arrive on campus, they were who they said they were, and you could go ahead and make them a card. Except you can't really do that right now. The data is flowing to your card production database, probably even right now, but that card printer's just sitting there. You need ID though of some kind, and if people are logging in, then they're probably getting usernames and passwords, but it's harder now to verify, identify, authenticate, except for all those processes you just went to, because you don't have that face-to-face, here's your card interaction, which kind of sealed the whole deal. You would establish this identity, that person was all that they said they were, but you still wanted to see their face, and you wanted to make sure it lined up with everything you expected about them. And human beings are pretty good at that. We miss it sometimes, but we have a lot of sensors for figuring out who people are. In in conjunction with all this other digital and physical data that you would have had. So pretty much right now, your authentication with these people is username and password. You know, they get to a certain point in the process, you grant them credentials, they're logging into your systems, you're sending them emails. That's about as far as it goes. There certainly, in many cases, has not been a card issued. Regarding card issuance, when you get to that point, how do you connect to your office? Mark, sorry, read your question.
How dare you?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. It's the second poll question. How do you connect to your card office? Let's see what everybody thinks. Awesome. You guys are fast today on the responses. Thank you very much. So 57% VPN, 43% are just doing a browser-based connection to the campus system, and 0% are at email. So I feel like that is consistent to what we've seen in the other presentations, right, Dave?
Yeah, we have seen a few folks that were doing email only, for good or bad. I don't know, maybe that's a good thing. You could ignore it more. But yeah, VPN is the most popular, but actually a lot of folks have some kind of browser connection, and you know, Caller ID has that too. We use VPN to get to the hardware that's actually physically on the Caller ID property, the servers and the individual PCs that connect to those servers, but we also have some applications that we can access by browser. So not unlike what it looks like this audience also has. So we're all doing that. What can we do right now? Because pretty soon, although not at the end of May or early June, we know now for sure, you're going to have all these young people wanting to come on campus. And how many weeks? We don't know. I think even from a month ago, the feeling was that it's going to be a while. So when it's time to make cards for people coming to your campus, it may be kind of a last minute thing. I assume there will be some amount of lead time, like we're going to open, you know, in a month, or we're going to distribute cards on the first day of class or whatever, or move-in day. But it's almost certainly not going to be groups of 200 to 300 every weekend throughout the summer orientation, which had kind of become a really convenient way to distribute IDs in addition to orienting students to the campus. So it's not unlikely that you're going to have to produce a bunch of cards in a short amount of time, batch printing, and you are not going to have access to them, for example, to take their photos. And this is a list here of essentially this, you know, the rough outline of producing a card. ID data comes in from the Student Information Service or other sources, and these are usually databases on-prem. You capture a photo. If you have to, you manually enter any other ID data, and then you check government issued IDs, which is usually visual inspection at the card office. If you're doing that, sometimes registrar offices do that. Then you print the card, you encode the mag stripe, any other chip data you capture or you encode, and your cards and printers are somewhere, probably right there in the card office. And then if there's any data from the card chip, you get it to the access control system somehow. Now, a lot of that happens pretty quickly or in the background, but one thing here, that the two things that are highlighted or can be related, image capture can take quite a bit of time. You know, your turn, yes, step up, no, back up a little bit more, move it a little to the right, take the hat off, no sunglasses, smile, look up, great, take a pic. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, no, I get it. I would hate that too. We'll take it again. So, you know, this takes some time taking photos, and even if your software is modern and capable and immediately saves them to the database, you still have that personal interaction that takes time before you can even hit print. So you know, we all know this experience, and so a good way to save time that is really in vogue right now is the photo upload, which is a self-service process. And This does not mean you won't capture photos in your card office, but it means maybe you don't have to capture nearly as many, if any at all. So there are several products, a couple products in particular, that do this, services. And when we mention them, everybody right away says, well, is it integrated? Meaning, if we have this third-party system, is it integrated into our OneCard system? Because everybody knows how difficult it can be if it's not. And then the other thing is these self-service photo services, you need to understand they have limits. They're usually pretty purpose-built to do one thing or a couple things. And in most cases, you sort of want to steer away from a lot of custom development. So there are a bunch of different products that do this. Both FARGO Connect, when it's integrated, and TRUCREDENTIAL in its native form support mobile photo capture, but it's not self-service. It doesn't have that self-service component, which has several complicated little features around it, transparent to the end user, but it's, you don't just have them log in and use your admin software. That's not what you want. Many universities have built their own self-service photo upload services, and many are very happy with them, and others are saying, no, it's really old and we need something new and better. Seaboard has this as a service that you can purchase through them. And then there are two standalone products called CloudCard and MyPhoto. And the CloudCard was, from its beginning, cloud-based, and that's what sets it apart. And it is sold as a white label by Transact. So if you get Transact's photo upload service, almost certainly it's CloudCard, and they install it and maintain it as part of their contract. MyPhoto is another third-party product. It has traditionally been on-prem. They're building a cloud, or have built a cloud-hosted version. So a couple different third-party systems. We can talk about them now. The CloudCard did a nice little diagram here. So when vendors make stuff like this, it really lights up the heart of somebody who's putting a PowerPoint together, because there's a whole slide I didn't have to make. So CloudCard is going to present to you how this kind of works for most of these systems. One way or another, you upload the email addresses and ID numbers of the people you want to capture their photo, and then an email is immediately sent by the service to each of those students, employees, whoever. And when they receive them, they have a secure link that allows them to upload a photo that they have taken themselves securely to the service. And then from there, the admin people log in via PC, through a browser, however, whichever of the two you're using, and you examine the photos and you approve them. And then after they're approved, those photos are loaded into the database or a folder wherever your ID production software wants to find photos. So for the end user, it's a very simple contact. They get an email, they upload a photo. For the admin people, most schools automate this at the front and back end. You just log in, you look at the photos, you crop them, you approve them, maybe you don't crop and approve, and then you download them you just click a button, or maybe they just automatically download. There are a lot of different ways these can be configured. Here is CloudCard's screen. This is the caller ID demo page of CloudCard, and you can see it's pretty familiar territory for this part of the early 21st century, where you have the tabs down the left. In this case, we're looking at the photos. CloudCard has what they call helper bot, which crops and rotates photos automatically, and then gives them a bar at the bottom of the photo recommending that you approve or deny the photos. It also has a full auto feature, but most schools usually choose just to look at the recommendations and then do the thumb up, thumb down thing. MyPhoto operates a lot similarly to that. There are some differences, and as you look at those, one school may prefer one and another school another, but that can save a lot of time. So the next thing, if you're looking to batch print and get through a lot of cards in less time than you would now when you're doing them one at a time, is remote printing. And going back to that card office workflow, when we're looking at this, we're printing and encoding the mag stripe. That's just automatic. Pretty much every university does that. And then capture any pre-programmed chip data in each card and send it to a database. Sometimes schools are still doing that manually, and that takes some time. It can be moved into the printer. And then the other thing is, it's especially important right now, is cards and printers have to be somewhere. And printers need people. They're like puppy dogs. You have to take care of them. You have to load the hoppers. You have to empty the hoppers. You have to clear the jams. You have to reload the ribbons. So you can send a 100 card print job to your office, and it may very well print out fine. Or it may print 8 cards and stop and sit there with an error message. Well, somebody's going to have to go in at least occasionally. You can VPN to your printer PCs. You can see what's going on. But if somebody has to handle that printer, then somebody's gonna have to be at the office. So, most of the people here said they can get in for essential reasons. I guess this would be an essential reason. Another way to approach it is bring a printer home. There are, and it doesn't, if you are using a reverse transfer printer with a great big laminator on it, that would pretty much fill up your trunk, and you're going to be printing a bunch of cards, there are some pretty reasonably priced, simpler printers that take up a lot less space. You could put one under each arm and carry them home. And you may not have lamination, but they'll print cards well. So just a thought, and I have some more crazy thoughts about that, but just a way to try to work around the limitations we're facing right now. If you have browser-based support for your printing and you're logged in that case, sometimes it's hard to get feedback on what your printers are doing. Because there's a screen on the printer and it's designed to tell you how it's doing. You don't necessarily get all the feedback through the software. One thing about printers and networks to keep in mind, and we'll talk more about this in another session where we'll actually talk about making cards and ID software, but ID printers are not as smart as your multifunction devices. So if you have a Xerox or Konica Minolta printer, that thing has a PC built in essentially, and you know that because you walk up, it has a touch screen. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can send emails. It's just a very powerful little computer built into that printer. That is not the case with ID printers. They have complicated little boards and they do wonderful jobs of printing, but they're not that smart quite. And so they need something nearby in most cases to help them communicate over a network and some kind of local hardware support. And an example of that is when you logged into GoToWebinar today, you almost certainly had to download a little desktop utility, GoToWebinar, what is it called? Anyway, and the reason is because you need that little bit of local software to control the microphone and the speaker and the camera on your machine. If you didn't have that, it would be hard for the browser software to control your hardware. Same thing with printers. Now, TRUCREDENTIAL has done a very bold thing in the DATACARD world, and they communicate directly from the server to the printer. And we hear mixed results because networks are a little unpredictable. So they may get that working great. It may be working right now, but so far it has been, some folks love it. Other people are not quite so happy with it. The HID approached this with their FARGO Connect product, and they said, okay, we're going to put some hardware right next to the printer, but it doesn't have to be a PC. We're just going to make this little Linux tablet here. We're going to call it a console. It'll support a bunch of printers, and it is the intelligent network endpoint that all the printers will print into or plug into, and then we will also have information from each of those printers available through that console. So you don't have to go to this LED screen on each printer. You can go to the console and see what's going on with each one of those. So a couple different approaches there in printers and networks. Also, if you need to print a bunch of cards and you don't think you're going to be able to manage this, there is third-party printing. And in that case, we call it at Color ID, we call it a recard. And you just collect all your card data, all your photos that you've collected, hopefully self-service, and you submit them to a service bureau. And that service bureau can send the cards fully produced back to you, and you distribute them. Or if you want to go the next step and actually outsource the fulfillment, in other words, producing those cards and then putting them in envelopes and physically mailing them, that's also a possibility. So these are services that we have provided, and we know other companies do this too, and it's something to think about. If you're in a terrific time crunch beyond everything we've discussed, and you have to print a bunch of cards by tomorrow morning, you just there aren't enough hours in the day, something to think about, just a thought. Maybe just print them with the K panel. It's one panel. Cards will fly through there in 10 seconds or less, encode the mag stripe, and then later on when you have time, bring your black and white card back and we'll hand you a full color card, sometime in the next 2 or 3 months. Keep your black and white COVID-19 souvenir ID card. Just a thought. I mean, I mentioned this to Joe Wright, who runs our service bureau at Color ID, and he goes, well, yeah, of course they could do that, but nobody's going to do that. I said, I know, but I need to talk about stuff. So I threw it in there. If you just print K panel and you don't laminate, it could be kind of a cool looking black and white card. It's fast. And of course, again, the small lightweight printers are a possibility for offsite. So Mark, a poll.
Let's do another poll. Okay, everybody, do you have some automated processes for production now? See what everybody says. Thank you all for jumping on this quickly. It's greatly appreciated. All right, cool. Let's go over these. Okay, we got a tie. 44% have a photo upload system that helps, and then the other 44% no. We are the only set up to work in the office, and then 11% say that they can print remotely even if no one is there. So I'm sure that that 11% is liking where they're at right now, being able to issue cards still, even though, not being in the office. That's a huge convenience factor. All right, Dave.
Yeah, it is. Unless, of course, you get a card jam. but
man.
that is nice to at least have that capability. And if you have a rack of printers and it can load balance, you might get through a big stack of cards before you have to go in and fix all of them. Just the way printers work. Obviously, this has come up a number of times in some of our word clouds on some other topics. What would help you? And some people just say mobile, because we want that over-the-air thing. The credentials are issued via radio waves. No having to go babysit the printer kind of thing. So we will talk about mobile in a lot more detail in another session. Also, beyond the VPN, as a number of you probably already are, you have browser-based connections. If you can upgrade to the latest ID software, then that's great. The only problem, of course, is you have to select that software, you have to arrange for the funds to purchase it, and then you have to install it. So it takes some time. It's not something that is likely to happen, by August you could, if you move quickly here. But systems at schools are pretty complicated, and it takes a few months. Often it means you have to get into the next budget cycle to get this kind of thing going. So, but if you are able to consider that, again, I mentioned Fargo Connect, and here is a diagram of how that looks. There is a web service, a cloud, HID cloud, that is set up for Fargo Connect, and it handles the ID template design, and also it has a dashboard showing what's going on with all your printers on your Fargo Connect system. And then to the left is the campus card system, and that is crucial to Fargo Connect because Fargo Connect does not have an interface. It is designed to be fully integrated. So going back to that question people ask about the photo upload systems, when you get to Fargo Connect, the answer is absolutely. It has to be integrated. So that's very important to consider when you're looking at Fargo Connect. It is integrated with a number of different products, and Seaboard and Secure, the access control system. Atrium is integrating Fargo Connect. So a number of different large systems are jumping on this, and a lot of schools are implementing it. It's a real thing. It runs with this console. I mentioned that earlier, and there's a picture of the console. It is about the size of a medium-sized iPad and has a touch screen, and it has a card reader zone, which you can use to initiate a print job. So if you've sent a print job to the console and you've also turned on authentication, then it won't print until somebody goes up and taps their card or types in with a PIN, whatever mode you've chosen. But it's pretty cool little device. It'll support up to 6 printers, and it tells you all about what's going on with your printer, status, consumable settings up, and you can do driver firmware updates from the console, which is pretty slick. I had talked about TRUCREDENTIAL, which has been out a number of years now. It is the replacement for IDWorks. If you are looking for the follow-on ENTRUST DATACARD product, and it is browser-based. You install it on a server or a machine, and then you use a web service to distribute this through browser. So you can get to TRUCREDENTIAL on any device that can run a browser. So an iPad or any other tablet or a PC or a laptop, you can open TRUCREDENTIAL in any browser. It has an API for integration, and it does do some smart card encoding. Although there's a little bit of a gap in what they promise and what they deliver, it's closing. Valid Web Link ID is a cloud-based product. Its encoding is not real strong, but it is pretty good for a basic total cloud-based solution. So again, you can get this through a browser and print to different places. CARDEXCHANGE Producer, it's a nice software. It has a number of different modules that you can order, such as Print Server, which will allow any PC to support a printer, whether it has CARDEXCHANGE on it or not, and it can be anywhere on your network. So here, your any PC becomes the intelligent endpoint for the printer that you're going to print with, and then it has a dispatcher to handle load balancing. So within a desktop product, and there is a web and cloud-based versions coming real soon. It's kind of got slowed down because of this stuff, but CARDEXCHANGE Producer right now has some very nice networkable features that bear looking at. So let's go on to the big question of the summer.
All right, everybody. When do you think your students will return? Is the next poll question. Let's hope everyone says in time for orientation. That would be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Hurry up and get back to normal.
Yeah. We talked to a school in Georgia yesterday, and they sound very much like they expect orientation to start in about a month.
Well, here we go. 78% maybe for fall semester. 11% in time for orientation. The other 11 have no idea. So there you go. Probably wishful thinking to think that it's going to be in time for orientation, but hey, I'll take that fall semester all day, any day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we hope that's the case. So that's all about looking ahead. Let's look ahead as you're just thinking through your card office processes as things have, gotten broken up. What you would normally be doing right now, you're sort of doing, but it feels different and all of that. So maybe just take a moment to look ahead to later this year or sometime in the next 2 or 3 years. What else could help your card production processes going into the future? And one thing we've talked about at Color ID quite a lot is an identity management system. We have a whole webinar devoted to this that will come up, but touch on it briefly here because it kind of fits into this topic of remote card office. If you're able to manage your identities independently from all the various systems, it gives you more flexibility in how you're going to produce your cards and then distribute that data to all the various systems. In this diagram right here, for example, the can on the top there is the database, the student information system or identity access management system that IT maintains, provides data to the identity management application, database, whatever it is, and that will then be directly connected to card production, photo upload, self-service, and all that stuff. And then it could move everything else into the role of a consumer of identity data, including your one card system. The thought is that the one card system is a one card system. It does everything for your one card. And the companies that provide those services are just working really hard to cover all the bases. And as new products and services and third-party vendors arrive on campus, they're doing quite well keeping up with all that, but identity management keeps coming up from our customers as like, yeah, but we need the following, we need reporting, we need all these various things. And the one card system is often focused in other locations. If you were able to extract identity management as its own layer, perhaps that would give you flexibility both for operation now and for making decisions about services you're using in the future. One thing that may be limited by the one card system is the way it can connect to all the other systems on campus. We know flat file transfers are extremely popular, and they're pretty simple and they're kind of bulletproof in a lot of ways, but they're not the most modern or timely connections. APIs are becoming very popular, especially with cloud products. Native database connections, there's still a fair amount of ODBC connection, especially from the ID software to an ID production database. But if you're talking, the flat file transfers are still sometimes taking over the weekend to get ID numbers to housing and to meals, food, dining services. So not everywhere, not all the time, but we're still hearing stories about that. So data connections are not all in the 21st century yet. There's a service called SWIFTDATA PINWHEEL, and it specializes in doing this very thing, in connecting data in a database, an ID production database, with the various systems on campus that need it. And its original focus is on access control systems, which are just perennially difficult to connect to. And SWIFTDATA PINWHEEL has done a lot of integrations. They also can set parameters and configurations for that data when it is sent to those systems, so that you may be sharing a prox card number from the ID printer to your access control system, but Pinwheel also knows that if you're in a certain group, you're only going to have access to certain doors, and the access control system will receive that as supporting data for that cardholder. So with all these connections that Pinwheel has established, all the way from the campus databases on the left to the access control systems on the right, and the auxiliary service products in the middle there, it is a very robust way to connect ID data. It does not have an interface that you work with every day, really. They manage it for you and set it up and take care of it, and they are solid in how they do that. On the other side of things, there's a product called HID Safe, which is an enterprise level ID management solution that a lot of Fortune 500 companies use. It features a lot of self-service services through a portal, which includes the photo upload, request an ID, request a replacement ID, report a lost ID. So you have a number of different things that can be requested through the self-service portal. Somebody in admin approves those requests, and then SAFE goes through and does what it needs to do, produces a badge, opens a door, all of that handled automatically once the approver has overseen, or in some cases automatically approved those requests. The thing that SAFE brings to mind, and then other products are coming onto the market right now that will offer these same kinds of services, is managing the life cycle of the identity. So from the time that someone enrolls or is hired or contracted, then you authorize or vet them through this application. You issue cards or tokens. You maybe have kiosks involved, or a self-service portal there would also fit in there. You provision the data into into all the various systems that need to know who they are and what the number associated with their tokens or cards are. You provide access, audit, and compliance through reporting, and also there's even in some of these applications a capability for some predictive analysis. And then at some point there will be changes. People will change where they live, they'll change their meal plans, whatever it is. If you're handling that through the card office, then you can attach that change to their identity, and an identity manager will make sure that all the affected systems know about that change. And then the final change, of course, is when somebody comes out of the system. And this often is not done. As many of you know, oftentimes records are created and they're never removed. And we have seen not very large schools with 1 million ID records that they're still managing or transporting or hoarding. And you can argue for or against that, but if it's because there's just not a good process, then there are tools now appearing that will help you with those processes. Here's the usual cloud kind of architecture, except instead of clouds in the middle, they've put in gears. And like I said, there are other products that also are coming on the market offering similar types of features. UNIFYIA Mobile is one that we're working with right now. They do a lot of this on the mobile device, and they can validate driver's licenses and have self-service features through the mobile device, and all of that can be handled, established through a one-time QR code. It's very clever. It's brand new, and we're exploring with them. It's just an example of one of many new products that are coming. There are some that are out there and established, and there are others coming on the market. So it's an exciting time for identity management. And here's what they do. You verify the identity, you enroll into the system, you issue mobile credentials for physical access payments or maybe even logical access. And then if it's a really modern system, it's probably cloud-based, and it can connect to pretty much anything. So we've talked a lot about how you're going to make cards for your students and any new faculty and stuff like that. But temporary identities, as long as we're looking into the future, it's not like you don't have visitors now. It's just that a lot of schools don't really have very good processes for managing visitor identities now. So as you're looking forward, is this something you want to consider? Because there are a lot of people coming onto campuses, and some of them with fairly high access levels that are not managed very well or at all. And people coming for conferences and summer programs, of course, it's nice to be able to send them an email, perhaps give them credentials that they can use both as cards and login, whatever. But contractors come on and off of campuses regularly, sometimes in large numbers, and they often are not well managed. They're given cards that open doors, and you may not even, in some cases that we've heard, may not even have expiration dates. So it seems like this is something that at some point would probably, as you're planning your identity management, managing temporary identities would be part of that. You know, if you had a more robust tool, then it would probably include visitors. Another way that visitors are challenged, for example, like the contractors, you don't want them in your one card system. You know, they're not going to class, they're not eating on campus, they're not living on campus, but they need to be managed somewhere. And identity management could see them as a non-student, non-faculty, non-staff contractor individual, and then handle them with all the various systems as needed. Expiration dates are important, being able to track them sometimes, and then making sure that the permissions for those credentials that are given out are appropriately allocated. Also about visitors, and this is just topical, we had heard a month ago when I was building this presentation that campuses were housing COVID-19 positive medical workers and other people. So I put this in here as a poll question just to see what was going on. What's going on your campus? This is just, to me, as I was reviewing this for today's presentation, I thought, you know, from a month ago, I think already we've seen a lot of change, but let's go ahead with this poll and just see where we are and how quickly we've moved in the last month or so.
Just waiting a couple more submissions and we'll close it up. Thank you, everybody. Alrighty, we'll flip it around. Okay, so 60% we heard we might be housing some folks, 40% none at the time, 0 the definitive yes. Very interesting. So yeah, that definitely has adjusted since the first series, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this thing has so far progressed differently than we were originally told it might, and this is a very good indication of that. If the numbers of infected and others had continued to increase at the pace they had originally, then I'm sure school housing would have been a lot more impacted. But to date, now we don't know where this is going, of course, but that's very interesting. Thank you all for your answers there. I just have one more slide to go to here, and just a couple things to mention at the end. If you are ordering anything about ID cards, just know that cards and supplies, printers, supply chains are disrupted right now. And things that are in stock and they can ship pretty quickly. Things that were in the process of being built somewhere else and having to get here, it sometimes can take longer than expected. And I've seen a number of emails just this week about some products that are not shipping in nearly the time we had hoped. So just be aware that it's a good idea to order sooner than later if you're anticipating the need to order. Color ID, just throwing it out there, we do have a custom web portal we can set up for you to place your orders if you want to go through that. And then another thing, just related, kind of interesting, one of our card manufacturers, with the lifting of FDA regulations, was able within a month to set up and market face masks or face shields. So if you are thinking about this, I mean, if you want to buy them, we'll sell them to you, but it's just kind of fascinating though. Thin clear plastic to cover your face from your forehead down to below your chin. We've had some schools express interest and actually purchase some of these, and they had the thin plastic sheets, and they had the tools to cut that plastic cleanly and into an interesting shape, and then to build a headband for it. So interesting times. I never thought we'd be talking about a card manufacturer selling face shields, and yet here we are. So with that, we'll wrap up our remote card office presentation and take it back to you, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. So we did get some questions throughout the presentation, and I'm just going to start pitching them to you. So first one, let's see here, is identity management similar to thoughts along data governance resources?
Well, data governance may mean something very specific to the person that asked this question. I can guess what that means here. But if you are, identity management, when we're talking about that, we're talking about the data that is used to identify a person, things related to who they are, and then based on who they are, what they can do, right? So in the IT world, there's an IAM, Identity and Access Management solution that all kinds of companies and enterprises and universities purchase, and they're big and they're expensive, and they manage everybody that has access to any digital resources. If you want to look at a file, you want to get on a certain server, you want to even log into your own PC, your IAM system will be involved in that. They'll know who you are. They'll have that whatever means built in to identify you, and then allow you permission to whatever you're trying to do. Log into your PC, get to a certain file on a server in a certain location, all those things. IAM takes care of that. And in physical identity, these are the things that you actually, it's not, can be digital, but this is stuff you actually do. You eat, you sleep, you go through doors, you open up applications and then print cards. So there's a whole other side to identity management that is different than the way the IT people see it. They see it as bits and bytes, and yet over where we live, we're human bodies carrying cards, and other, biometrics and other things, phones. And so if you take the things that establish an identity, an ID number, a photo, your name, any other information, it could be what you use to print a card. It could be any other identity data that's going to be shared from system to system, and you collect that in a database, which you need to print cards. Then how you control that data is how you manage it. So data governance would be affected by how the identities are given access to data, and it is the identity data controlled by certain governing policies. And if it's identity data, then you could handle that as it's an identity data database. You could manage your identity data right there in that database where it goes, what of it is allowed out, how is it allowed to be modified. So I would say they're not necessarily exactly the same thing, but one may impact the other and another may support the other. So it's a great question. I'd love to explore that in more detail. Unfortunately, in this format, we can't really do that, but I did talk a lot, so hopefully that's helpful.
Thanks, Dave. So that was it for the PIM related items. Now, a lot of the other questions are geared towards photo upload. So let me kick it off with that one. So for those that utilize online photo submission, how do you verify government issued IDs?
Well, the most common process right now is that through these various applications, you can upload a photo of yourself and you can upload a photo of your government issued ID. So it's just a photo. The administrative person then will open their admin screen for that application, and they will look at your photo. Yeah, that face is properly cropped, the background is white, they're looking in the camera, good, I can approve that. Let's just check the government ID, and I'll, you can expand that on your screen and take a look at it, and it looks like a good Georgia driver's license, and the photos match as far as I can tell. So I'm going to say that's that person and that's their ID. Now, it is not definitive, but it's better than nothing, and it's not that far from what you would do if you were in the card office when they come to pick up the card and you have them present a government issued ID, passport or driver license, and you're going to look at it, and you're not necessarily going to know all the security features that all the various states employ. Like a certain state may put a tiny little detail in the upper right hand corner of all their driver licenses and not tell anybody that. And if you saw a card, a fraudulent card, and it didn't have that from that state, would you know to look for that? Now, there are, if you want to go to the next step, there are scanners and supporting software that will actually, that does know, and you have to keep it up to date. You have to keep doing firmware updates, because as states change their driver's licenses and as passports change, the software has to know that. You put this on the scanner, it has a UV light, it has other ways of magnifying certain areas. In other words, it checks all the visual features automatically, compares them to what it expects based on the issuing body for that ID. So there's an automated process that can actually be quite accurate. There are also some other processes involving mobile phones that are pretty intriguing. They cost more though. You know, if all you're going to do is upload a photo right after you upload the photo of yourself, you know, that's a fairly inexpensive system. If you're willing to spend a little bit more, you can get some much more elaborate, automated, and much more likely to be thorough systems to evaluate government IDs.
Very good. Okay, next question. Let's see here. Regarding the photo upload, are there solutions that auto-approve based on a set of criteria, or is it that the approval still needs to be manual by a person for acceptance? And this is in regards to the photo upload solution.
Right. Well, I can tell you, my photo pretty much requires a manual process. Seaboard, I don't know enough about Seaboard's process to know what theirs requires. I'm going to guess it's a manual. Most of them are manual, and the reason is because most of the schools still want to look at all the photos. Now, CloudCARD has a feature. Again, I mentioned they call it HelperBot. It's they refer to it as artificial intelligence, and it crops and rotates the photo, which is cool. So you're already looking, you may not, in most cases, you don't have to even do that. And then it based on thresholds that are adjustable, just recommends approving or denying the photo with a red, yellow, or green bar. And if you're looking down a list of 100 photos and 80 of them have green bars, you quickly scan down, they all look good to you. At the top, there's a button that says approve all green photos, boom, 80 are automatically approved. You didn't have to click each one, but they did pass your eyes. Now, CloudCARD also has a fully automatic feature, and you can let that algorithm automatically approve and deny photos. But as far as I know, maybe 1 or 2 schools of a couple hundred are doing that. It's still, I don't know that much about it, because so far I have yet to work with a school that says, yeah, we want to do that. So far everybody just wants to. It's just so much quicker. You're scanning down a list of photos, you're looking at them fast, and if you can approve a bunch that are already recommended for approval, it happens pretty quickly compared to having to capture a photo. So a lot of schools say, oh, we want full auto. By the time they get through the implementation process, they say, well, maybe we'll turn that on in a year or two. So it's there. I know at least that one product has it. Others may also.
All right, Dave. Last question. Ballpark. How long would it take to implement a photo upload system from start to finish?
Yeah, it's a good question. If it has to do with how much integration you need. If you are willing to do some manual, you're importing. Somehow you have to get a list of email addresses and ID numbers into the photo system. So, those come usually from the student information system, or maybe from the OneCard system. You create that list, you do a filter, however you want to do that. That list comes out of there and then gets into the photo solution, which then uses those emails. From that point, it's automatic, generates the emails that request each person to upload a photo. And then at the end, the photos have to be downloaded from wherever that is, from a server or whatever, back into your system so you can use them to produce cards. So getting the photos in, or getting the card holders into the photo system and then getting the photos back into your card production system are the two things that can be integrated, or they can be handled manually. So if you're willing to, if you're in a real hurry and you want to get something up in a week or two, and you don't mind doing a CSV export into a photo solution, and then downloading the photos after you approve them by clicking a button and then dragging a zip file into wherever your card production database or folder is, that can happen quickly, a week or two. It's the integrations, though, that take a little longer. If you want cardholder accounts created when they click through a single sign-on link on a card office or other university website, that's how most schools do this, by the way, whether it's embedded in a one-card system or a third-party system connected to your university site. Because at this point you have several IT resources involved, you have some decision making and some policy. I would say the quickest I've seen there is 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes it takes a couple months, and it's only just because somebody says, oh, we have to get more permissions, or we need a decision and that person's on vacation for 2 weeks. So it's usually end user just affected, like how many resources can you put on it, how quickly can you get decisions approved, those kinds of things. But if you just want to get up and running in a hurry and you're willing to do a little bit of manual work, and then you could do the integration as you go along, it's not like it would affect that one way or the other. That could happen in a week or two.
All right, Dave, thank you very much for answering those questions. And thank you, everyone, for submitting those questions. Very good participation on that. So just a reminder that the 5-part series does require their own registration. So don't miss out on the next webinar this Tuesday. It's going to be on credential technology. And that, again, is Tuesday, May 12th at 1 p.m. Also, reminder that, if you have any other additional questions, feel free to reach out to any of the Color ID staff. We are recording this, and we will supply that recording once the series has concluded. We'll send you a link so that you can watch it or share it with your coworkers. With that said, on behalf of Danny, David, myself, thank you so much for attending, and please be safe. Thank you. Goodbye.